Hi, and welcome to the Common Sensei number 4. And the question we're going to have a look at today is, will tech save us, or will we indeed save ourselves? From that tech? And the question arises because there is a need for us to match our command of technology with an equal or greater command of ourselves. At the moment, that's not happening to a great degree, and to the degree that it's not happening, we're becoming, or already are, slaves to that tech, to our expectations of the tech. But never mind, I will be providing 7 things that you can do to prevent that. Now, my previous career, which was in magazine publishing, began before the internet was born. At the end of each day, we sent physical slides and photographs by courier to the Repro House for scanning, and then they would return the digitized images on a hard disk the next day. Once the pages were made up, we delivered the files on a CD and received back the next day or a few days later a set of 4 CMYK transparencies for each page, which we then physically inspected. And once satisfied, we sent the whole batch by overnight courier to the printers in Cape Town. Now the point is, deadlines in those days were hard. I sound like my dad in my day. Anyway, the point is, deadlines were hard. They were hard to meet, and hard as in fixed in stone, because if your magazines didn't make the trucks in time, they wouldn't be on the supermarket shelves for payday. The trucks didn't go the next day, they went in like 2 weeks' time. So it was critically important that we met the deadline, and it was wise to always be a day ahead of schedule to allow for the inevitable hitches. And then one day the internet was born, and we were literally invited into a formal presentation and told, this is the internet and this is how it will work. This is email and this is how it will work. Now suddenly, text could fly around the world in an instant, and that made it quicker and easier for writers to file their stories. It took some time before line speeds became fast enough to send large digital files containing images and made-up pages and so on, and thereby save that courier time. Now here's my point. What did we do with that extra time that the tech allowed us? Did we finish up early and go to the beach, or we were inland? Did we go to the movies? Did we accumulate it all and take a day off a week or a month? No, we did not. We filled it up instead with procrastination, with creative indulgences, with last-minute changes, with demands from our bosses. We let a lot of inefficient fat creep into the system, and suddenly we were working longer and harder than ever. Now, I had long since left that field when COVID hit. I was coaching, and in that instance, technology came to the rescue. It meant that I could deliver sessions and workshops online, and the people I coached could equally continue to work remotely. And what did those people, my clients, do with the hour or two saved by not having to commute each day? Did they take long walks through the forest or sit and meditate, spend time with their children? No, they did not. They filled it up instead with, if not meetings, then with the work that didn't get done while they were in back-to-back online meetings all day, or with after-hours demands from their bosses. Studies actually showed that most people worked on average 2 hours a day more during COVID. So the question arises, do we use or boss technology, or do we let technology use or boss us? And if it's the latter, who do we have to blame? Those actual tech bosses who invented the tools? Our own bosses at work? Or ourselves? My response is, yes, we do let it boss us, and we are doing it, or letting it happen, to ourselves. Now, based on the above statement, there are 3 directions we could take this in. We could look at whether we need to rein in those tech bosses and not fall so easily for the promises they make. We do. We could look at whether we need to challenge our own bosses and our corporate cultures. We do need to do that as well. We could also look at whether we need to increase our ability to self-manage, to keep pace with the increasing computing power and the reach of social media. And we most certainly do. Now, given the remit of this series, we'll focus on that last point, on the individual response. And rather than quote studies, let's look at something we can experience directly. And I'd like to return to an example I've used before. It's a relatively innocuous one, but fairly universal, and because it's innocuous, can be used to make the point. And it's the use of video technology for assisting referee decisions during sporting events. Now sure, in using that, many decisions get cleared up. But even with endless replays, there's still plenty of grey. Was the handball deliberate? Was the try held up or the foot on the line? Often the camera angle doesn't allow you to see. Was that really a no ball? Was the video technology really that accurate? I mean, the ball tracking system, for example. Often it's still too close to tell, open to interpretation, even after like 20 time-consuming and energy-deflating replays. Now let's look at what's really going on here. Firstly, we've destroyed the experience that we came for, which was passionate excitement, the thrill of witnessing extraordinary skill and a few sleights of hand being executed at speed. Surely the referee decision should be part of that, even subject to that. So if somebody manages to make it look like they got across the line, should we give them that? The second point, though, and the one that's more important for us here, is that we've become so focused on the idea of a perfect right or wrong answer. And in doing that, we've not only lost our appreciation for the wonder of the moment, but we've also lost our tolerance for the imperfections and sometimes unfairness of life. Sometimes the decision just doesn't go your way, and you have to live with that. But with each replay, our tolerance muscle weakens, and we become emotionally and ultimately morally flabby. It's kind of the moral version of lying on a couch instead of exercise. For some, their tolerance muscle is so weak, their self-forgetfulness, we could say, is so high, that they spew hatred on social media to the point of threatening referees' lives. Now think about how this plays out, say, in the world of dating. Pre-instant messaging, like when I was a kid, sorry, but I have to say it, you had to write notes to your love prospects and pass them through various hands. Those of us who did that had no idea who would see them, who would gossip about them, when or if they had arrived, and it was an interminable wait until the reply arrived, if it ever did. Letters while serving in the army were even worse. It would take weeks. The torture, you can't imagine. The upside, however, was the emotional tolerance we were required to develop. These days, if you don't have 2 blue ticks within minutes and a reply within seconds of that, you experience the whole gamut of emotions, from anxious to exasperated to apoplectic. So we can see then that self-management is not supported by the way the tech is designed. On the contrary, we know that most apps are designed to increase interaction, or less euphemistically, to generate addictive behavior, basically. And to voluntarily self-manage in any of the situations I've mentioned requires an enormous amount of awareness and intention, much more than ever before. And most people won't do that if they don't have to. It takes enough willpower just to get through the day. Is there any wonder then that we're facing a mental health problem? Now, only this morning, I read about daycare apps for parents that track children's movements and even their heart rate throughout the day. God help the mothers who get fed that data. Who even thinks of these things, and who thinks they'll be a good idea for the advancement of humanity? Who calls this progress? I'd like to quote here from Siba Vaidyanathan from his excellent book, Antisocial Media, and he says, the constant daily effect of these technologies is narcotic and neurotic. He further points out the wonders of what we can do with our tech to communicate instantly over vast distances, entertain ourselves with VR goggles, or achieve incredible physical feats like performing whole archaeological digs. But despite that, he points out how we've been unable to harness it to improve social and political outcomes like alignment on the pandemic or climate response, or resisting the rise of populist nationalism in so many countries. To achieve any of those things, in my view, would require greater self-management across a broader range of the population. However, that's not happening. I'll quote again from Vaidyanathan. He says, we display unlimited talents, but no mastery. We process infinite data, but display no wisdom. And I say we've been here before. Every age throughout history has been defined by the dominant material that arose during that age. So we've gone from the Stone Age, through the Bronze Age, iron, industrial, machine, nuclear, to this, the Information Age. In each instance, that material was used to wage war on a bigger and grander scale. I mean, what was World War I other than the Industrial Revolution having inevitably turned its focus to killing? In other words, no sooner had we created these magnificent machines that could mass produce clothing and all sorts of wonderful things, that we turned them to mass producing killing machines that could kill on a mass scale, machine guns and the like. And then we gained nuclear technology, and before it was used for anything constructive, it was used for a bomb. Now, we can see, we're letting our mastery of information be used against us. And to quote Vaidyanathan for one last time, not for the first time, he says, market and political forces have turned the products of the Enlightenment against Enlightenment. The eminent tech journalist Kara Swisher, who has recently published a memoir of her years as a journalist in the tech business, it's called Burn Book, seems to have experienced something similar. In a recent interview in The Guardian, she said, "I saw the possibilities of tech being the savior of humanity. Instead, it's like, they promised us jetpacks and this is what we got? Are you kidding me?" And to my other point, she said, "The problem isn't tech, it's people." In my work, I'm often amazed at young people who show up for coaching, seeking a way that they can change the world or make a difference. It's become fashionable now, instead of wanting to make $1 billion, to influence 1 billion people. It's ambition all the same, but with a prettier face. Anyway, the point is that usually their proposed solution is some form of tech. And my question, which I don't usually ask to them, but sits in the back of my mind, is, what problem exactly are you looking to solve? And exactly how is this tech going to do that? And most importantly, what of ourselves will we be leaving behind when we get subsumed by that tech solution? I don't ask that because it wouldn't be appropriate in a coaching relationship, and also because the unquestioned worship of tech being the answer to everything is astounding, and one that I reckon is probably best evidenced by this story from my life. So following the media's move online, I skilled up in internet technologies to the point where I managed an internet services company in Cape Town for a couple of years. I also co-founded a startup which we hawked to the venture capitalists in the area at the time. And at that time, the Western Cape was promoting itself as Silicon Cape, the Silicon Valley of Africa. And for a number of years, around 2010 to 2016, there was a giant tech conference at which local visionaries and luminaries would speak. Now here's the interesting bit. The conference called itself Net Profit. That's Prophet. It was a play on the word profit, Profit for sure, and pointed to the profits that every tech bro dreamed of. But the unconscious self-image of the tech bros as prophets, and therefore some kind of saviors, was there for all to see. Okay, so let's pause, step back, and check where we are. To sum up, we welcome new technology for the benefits that are promised. Those benefits are never quite as singular as we were led to believe. There's always a downside, which we inevitably fall victim to. And here's the kicker. We fall victim to it because we don't match the advance in technology with an advance in emotional maturity or the ability to self-manage. We end up giving away those 2 hours a day instead of claiming them. Then we look to more tech and the tech bosses to set us free from that. Now, individually, we may feel helpless to stop this train. So, what can we do? We can become more aware and carve out a space where we learn to manage ourselves relative to what the tech and the world enslaved by the tech seems to be demanding. And here are some specific 7 points coming up. We can firstly be more self-aware. In other words, recognize the ways in which you are or can be a slave to technology when you're letting technology use you or invade your space, rather than using it in a way that truly benefits you. The second is learn to self-manage. So recognize when you're getting lost in the details of the situation, for example, whether the goal was scored or not, or whether your love interest has unrequited blue ticks, or the reason for your child's elevated heart rate on that app, and just pull back instead. Imagine if there was no tech, and focus on your own reaction to the situation. The third one is bank the time. Think about the time the tech has saved you. For example, from having to stand in a banking or shopping queue. And then bank that time and use it wisely. The fourth one is live in the real world. Notice that even with the best tech, we still live in a world of limitation, imperfection, and that life is full of gray areas and irony and paradox. Sometimes the tech just doesn't give you a clear answer to whether the goal was scored or not. Try coming to terms with that, rather than looking for the perfect solution. Or, like those young people I mentioned, trying to save the world. The fifth one is adjust your expectations. Remind yourself that technology is just a tool and can help improve some things, but it's not a silver bullet that can provide every answer, and each solution certainly has a downside. Number 6, start a conversation. So inspire and encourage people to take back their lives instead of being in blind slavery to tech. Invite them to treat technology as a tool and not as a panacea. And in particular, in the workplace, challenge your boss and your organizational culture to do the same. The blind subservience to innovation needs to be challenged. Number 7, start a movement. Advocate for new laws and social structures that develop incentives for tech bosses to serve society by making tech truly useful instead of serving themselves by making tech addictive. So, all this, and we haven't even mentioned AI yet. But perhaps the only thing to say about that is all of the above on steroids. The principle is the same. The more leverage we gain through our command of technology, the more internal muscle we need for self-awareness and self-management. Thank you. And if you found value from this, please remember to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.